Welcome to the Hopefulist with me, Wendy McClure. This is where we turn those nasty, negative thoughts into positive and work toward a happy, fulfilled life. Now, let's get started. Welcome to another bonus episode of the Hopefulist. Today, we have someone very special, Jill Shearer Murray. She is the author of Big Wild Love and TEDx speaker on the power of letting go. Welcome, Jill.
I'm so happy to be here with you, Wendy. I love the name of your podcast.
Thank you.
Oh my God, it's so good. And boy, do we ever need it.
I know. And I've told this story before.
Oh my God.
I came up with the name because, and the whole theory around the Hopefulist is I've been a lifelong pessimist. And when I started to finally change a little bit, it felt so weird and unnatural for me to call myself an optimist. And I'm like, well, maybe I'm hopeful that I can get to that place where I can call myself an optimist. And then jokingly, I'm like, I'm kind of like a hopefulist.
Right. It's so good. It's just so good. Yeah.
Well, thank you very much. I have to start out with telling you the most fascinating story. Now, Jill and I have been in contact for quite some time. It's been a good couple of months. I know her through my sister-in-law who owns a boutique in Doylestown. Her and Lisa both were on the show. And Jill frequents the boutique.
Yes.
And so, you know, Joanne kind of connected the two of us as another possibility to have on as a guest for the podcast. Here's the fascinating part. I had already emailed with you a couple of times back and forth, and we hadn't set up the interview yet. But literally the day after I had emailed with you, I get a text message from a friend of mine with a link to your TED Talk on YouTube. And she says to me, this just seems like something that you would like, because she knows what I do and all of that kind of stuff. And I literally texted her back and went, why are you sending this to me? Like, this is the weirdest thing I have ever experienced.
Is it though? You know, I mean, I guess it's what you believe. Like, I mean,
you don't seem surprised at all.
I'm not, because I so believe in this synchronicity. I know that sounds like so super woo-woo-y, but you know, I have to tell you, I've seen it too many times that I like truly believe, like I am a person who believes that we have all the answers inside of us. And that if we listen to our gut and we listen to our intuition and we allow ourselves to be pulled to those things, then this kind of synchronicity happens probably more than we're even paying attention to, because so many of us are not so keyed into all of those things. But it doesn't surprise me at all. I've seen it happen too many times. I think it's awesome. I love that.
I just think it was so crazy. I mean, like, and it's not even somebody that I speak to a lot. You know what I mean? Right. Like, how did she just so happen to come across your YouTube at that time? Literally, like the day after I was speaking to you via email. Like, it's just so odd.
Yep. That's the universe saying, like, keep at it, ladies. It's going to happen.
So, yeah. So was that the universe talking to me to say, make sure to have her on? Or was that the universe speaking for you saying, hey, I want to be on?
and probably saying to both of us, hey, let's go shop.
I have a problem. Luckily, I live far away from the shop. So I do online.
Yeah.
But every time I go, actually, they have a live Facebook show that they do,
which is so good,
once a week. And I started watching the replay last Friday, and I'm like ticking things off. I want this, I want that, and all of a sudden, I love the girls, but I was like, I have to turn it off, because if I don't watch it, I don't want anything.
That's right. And you know what, Wendy, I go. Because I do all of my work alone, you know, because of COVID, and I'm in my house and I'm only talking to people like I'm talking to you right now on Zoom. And my work colleagues are two very, very like bossy dogs. I sometimes I leave the house and I literally go there just to like, because I like delude myself into thinking that I can just hang with them.
They're your friends.
Because they're so fun and they're so wonderful. And so I go over, the name of the store is Jolie Boutique. They're in Doylestown. I'm just throwing that out there. And I go over and I'm like, I'm not shopping. I'm just here for a little like human to human interaction.
And bring me wine.
I'm going home. And then like hours later and like 2 bags later. And then I come home and I'm like, I don't go anywhere. What do I need all these fabulous clothes for? So I've started doing like day changes, just to like appease myself.
Right. And the greatest thing about shopping somewhere small and local like that is, they know you and they know what your style is and they know what would look good on you. Like there's so many times already that Joanne has been like, okay, this is a Wendy sweater. I'm surprised.
I love how they name clothes after us. It's just so fun. I know they're great. They're great. All
right. So tell me a little bit about the epiphany you had while sitting on the bathroom floor of a stranger's home.
Oh, well, that was the epiphany. Of course, we all have them all the time. And I love that you're leading with epiphany because it's one of my favorite subjects that we do not talk about enough, speaking of intuition.
Yeah.
And I mean, that was the moment after 12 years of being in the wrong relationship with a wonderful man I loved more than anything, who was never going to marry me, which is what I desperately wanted, which I always knew, Wendy, for so many of the years, at least the last 8 that I had been with him, 8 years, that he was never going to give that to me in my gut of guts. But I didn't want to hear it because I didn't like it. So I figured if I ignored it and I pushed it away and I didn't look at it, it would just go away, which of course it doesn't. It's like I say it's like a 2-year-old toddler after eating a huge bag of Swedish fish. It just gets louder. It just gets more, it starts banging on your insides until you find yourself on the floor of a stranger's apartment where you're supposed to look at a condo to live with this person who does not show up twice.
Oh.
And you can't unsee that epiphany anymore. Yeah. You get to that place where all of a sudden it's like the beach ball that you've been holding down for so many years just comes rising up through your windpipe and chokes you and says, what are you going to do now? Like, what are you going to do now? How are you going to reason away that feeling, that knowledge that's inside of you? And how will you feel if you continue to reason it away, knowing what you know to be the truth, which is how much more do you need? 12 years, meet me here at X time to see if we will at least live together. And not showing up tells me a lot about what my future could potentially look like. And, when we finally acquiesce to our epiphanies, it kind of puts us, face to face with ourselves in the mirror.
And it's so hard though, because like you said, you want to reason it away. You want this relationship to work. You want it to be everything that you've ever dreamed it could be, but yet it isn't. So many times we're like, well, maybe this is good enough. Maybe this is good enough. How do we talk ourselves out of settling for good enough?
We have to start a lot sooner than when we're at the point of decision making. And so, that's the question. And, that's why my book is titled Big Wild Love and Not Letting Go, because every decision, everything we hold on to, everything we choose to let go of all starts with what we think and feel and believe about ourselves. And so if we believe, as I did at that time in my life, that this was my only shot, who was going to want me, he was a good person, he wasn't beating me or hurting me, he was handsome and kind and smart and all these wonderful things. And oh, so what? He just didn't want to, build a home and a life with me. That I don't need that, because I'm lucky to have what I have, because subtext, it's all that I deserve. It's all that I think is possible for me, which continues to track back to very deep inside of us, how we feel about ourselves. What do we believe is true and possible for us? I always, and I talk about this very openly in my book and in, a lot of these conversations that I have, I had a lot of issues with my body. I learned from a very loving mother who had the best of intentions that, unless I was a perfect size 6, here were my choices in life. If I wasn't a perfect size 6, boys don't like fat girls. Hey, I had a boy, if I got rid of him, and I would see my other friends, dating very poorly, because that's what we do. That's part of the process of dating is, there's some good ones, there's some bad ones. We figure out who we are and what we want from life. But I think when we believe less of ourselves, when we don't, align what we want with who we think we are and what we think we deserve subconsciously, then I think we are so prone to settling, which is why I always talk about, we need to cultivate our own big wild love is my term for it, because it's really a very intentional form of self-love. It's not like this woo-woo-y self-love of, we have to go to the gym and we have to hang out with our friends and be whole in that way. It's more about, how can I know deep inside that these are the things that I deserve to have in life, which are the things that I really want. And that those things are possible for me, barring space, time, and, limitations. And how can I know these things so deeply in my belief system and my thoughts and ideas about myself, and, understanding what I learned in childhood about myself, understanding what all my experiences have taught me. How can I be in charge of that narrative inside of myself so that I know that no matter what happens in my life, I'll always be okay because I have me. Because letting go of anything is always about risk. It's always about losing something. And it may be something really shitty. It may be something really crappy or that's harming us, but still I've been having these conversations so much, Wendy, about grief and about how even the things that we lose that we don't want or we walk away, there's still like a part of us that feels grief over it. And that's not a comfortable feeling. No. So even though I let go of a relationship that was not serving me, I felt grief. That was the pain. That was the thing I avoided for 12 years, thinking I could settle and reason my way through it. And so if we believe we're okay, if we believe that we will always act in our own best interest, that we'll survive anything, then we're less likely to settle. We're less likely to hold on to the things that are just not meant for us. And it takes some of us a really long time to learn it. Some of us never learn it. And some of us never really have to learn it because we were pushed out into the world with so much esteem and so much self-love. And, we may find ourselves, nobody has a perfect life. We may find ourselves in situations as life changes where we're holding on to the wrong things, and we can come back to it pretty quickly that, oh, wait, this isn't right for me. I'm going to move forward. And I've seen it happen with some people, but I think for most of us, it's that fear that we don't deserve it and it's not available to us that keeps us stuck in what we don't want.
Well, my story is kind of interesting, and it's kind of annoying to me. And I guess it's exactly what you're talking about, the power of letting go. I had a pretty cool career and I had lots of friends and, and I had a lot of fun, but I had a lot of bad relationships. And even the ones that I did have were very short lived. They'd be anywhere from a year to 2 years. And then, I spent a lot of time alone, not dating at all. Mm-hmm. And when I got to about 39, I decided maybe this isn't going to happen for me. Mm-hmm. I've been waiting to buy a house, to really start my life until I got married, because I thought I thought that's what I was supposed to do, but it's also what I wanted to do.
Right.
So, once I bought this condo, I guess I just had a shift in mindset where I was like, okay, well, it's going to be me now, me and the dog, and we're going to take care of us. And I bought a condo. I got up together with a group of friends to get a shore house every summer, and I started doing me. And that was in August of my 39th year. And by the May of the following year, I started dating who is now my husband.
Isn't it amazing how that happens?
But I find it so annoying. Like, why did it have to take me so long to let go of, and why do you have to let go of the dream in order to get it? Like, do you know what I mean?
Well, first of all, you don't have to let go of the dream in order to get it. But if you if you are a person who is going out into the world, and I don't think we actually realize this, Wendy. Like, I think, sometimes when we want something so badly, we go out into the world from a place of anxiety and desperation instead of a place of play and curiosity and confidence that what we want is we'll eventually have the things that we want. Like, I don't know if you're like me, but I truly never in my heart thought I would ever get married. I truly never thought those things would happen. I'm air quoting, happen for me. I didn't connect them at all to my choices. I didn't connect them at all to the power that I had over making those choices. Everything was just sort of like, this is just not meant for me or whatever. It wasn't, hey, Jill, you're choosing poorly.
Right.
Like you're making choices in prospective partners who are never, ever going to give you what you want. On some level, if I was talking to myself in the mirror, I would say on some level, of course, you know that. But maybe it felt good in the moment, or maybe I needed that validation, or maybe I needed to, have somebody to go out with, and I couldn't be alone with myself because I didn't want to look at the things that were keeping me stuck, or the fact that I was by myself. Maybe the fact that I was 39 years old and having to acquiesce to the fact that maybe this is never going to happen to me. But there is something that shifts inside of us when we find peace with the fact that maybe it is going to be just us. Maybe that's the mindset we should have always taken. Like, if I look back at my 20s and I say, to myself, what would I say to her? I would say to her, just relax and enjoy your life and believe that the things you want are out there for you, and be very clear about the choices that you're making. Because we're not powerless. We're not powerless. And so when we have big, wild love, we're able to see those choices for what they are, because we're not so afraid that the things we want are never going to happen for us. We're willing to take the risk in the moment to let it go, because we don't feel like it's our only and last chance. Or, okay, we don't keep like throwing like criteria or things that we want in a partner out like cards. I mean, we become much more intentional and much more focused, and our choices shift and change. Because I had a similar experience, Wendy, when I left that relationship and I uprooted my whole life and I moved back here. I decided, I may never get married. Get okay with it really fast right now and just have fun. Like, we're not here to suffer. Like, just go out and have fun and meet people. And, if you find someone, great. That is such a bonus. But if you don't, you can still be happy, which sounds like the same process that you went through. And I think when we get to a place where we're happy on our own, the charge comes out of dating. The whole charge comes, and other people feel that energy.
Right. It's not as important. You're not coming across as desperate. Like, this is the one that has to stick, Right. I understand what you're saying, but I feel like, and maybe I'm wrong, maybe subconsciously and deep down, I did feel differently, but I did feel like I was always going to get married. I always felt like I was going to have that traditional get married, have kids and all. And year after year after year, when it didn't happen, I just confused me more and more. I was just like, I don't know what's going on. I'm a decent looking person. I'm pretty fun to be around. I find myself to be delightful.
I find you to be delightful too.
So it was just confusing to me why I was having so much trouble. And like you said, I finally got at peace with it, because, a lot of it had to do with judgment. I didn't want to be the shrew. I didn't want to be the old maid or what have you, the spinster. That's the word I'm looking for. And, when it all comes down to it, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what people say about you or think about you. It matters how you feel about yourself and the way that you build your own life for your own happiness.
Totally. Oh my God. Totally. And I say this in my TED talk, right? Like, let go of what other people think. First of all the words that society has for women as they get older
crazy
are just hideous. I have friends who are rewriting this language, which I love. I have author friends who are revising, spinster, crone. These are like the worst words in the whole world. And, for our generation, Wendy, I always say, loving ourselves or living a life on our own, that was not the prize. The prize was the love of a man or a woman, whatever your, proclivities are. And so I always say, like, Mary Tyler Moore taught me how to be a single woman in the city, working a job, having friends, going on dates. This is no shade to my parents or their friends, but that was my role model, was watching her go to work every day, live in an apartment in Minneapolis. And I mean, I didn't throw my hair up in the middle of my hat up in the middle of a busy intersection.
Oh, well, you should have. Oh, that would have been perfect.
There's still time, but and I would love to. That was considered very provocative. Very provocative
in that day and age.
That's right.
Even have a show that had a single woman that went to work every day.
Right. So, I mean, so at the same time, like, we were emerging with some of these choices, there's the word spinster still hanging behind our heads. But if you look at the data now and you see how, like, what is it? Like almost 50% of all people are single.
Yeah.
Because, it doesn't mean anything and it doesn't matter. We have so many choices now, so many more choices than our parents ever had. Like, the different ways that we can have relationships, the different ways that we can enjoy and embrace our lives, the different ways that we can meet people, the different ways that we can make money and have careers, and all the different options and opportunities, and even down to how long we live, how long we're having children. I mean, just all of it is so deeply different than we were when you and I were younger and growing up, that we had to learn how to really, like, cast off all these monikers like spinster and crone, because we are not living in that world anymore. And so that was part of our challenge, I think.
Well, and again, but those words are still out there, and the young girls growing up today do still know what they mean. Where, again, on the flip side, older men who are unmarried are bachelors. Right. It just goes to show the double standard. And that's what's really hard, is changing the conversation. Kind of along the same lines, even not necessarily, bad words, but, I often think that the word selfless is a terrible word. We encourage women to be selfless. What does that mean? That means you put yourself last.
Right.
So I have created the word selfful.
Yes.
That means you do what is best for you without guilt.
Right. That's right. And that's very, very hard for people. And what I will do is I will track that back to a lack of big, wild love. Because when we have big, wild love, these things become almost reflexive. We know we care about other people. We know what's right and wrong. We know what's good and bad. We know what's in our best interest and other people's best interest. But we also love ourselves enough to know that we need to put ourselves first, and this is not in a selfish way. This is a way that we have a right to have the things we want in our lives. And part of loving ourselves also means being a good friend, being a good companion, being a good person, being good at whatever it is that we bring into our lives, because that's who we are as self-loving people who know that, we're not going to shortchange ourselves. We're going to go out into the world and we're going to go for the things that we want. And we're going to put ourselves first in a way that allows us to have the life that we want, because we're only here for how long?
Well, not only that, but if you don't discover that, and this is what I've learned in my journey, is if you don't discover your own self-love and your own joys and desires, you're never going to be happy.
Well, I mean, it depends on your definition of happy, right? Like, I mean, I think we all know a lot of people out there who are happy being a victim. That's where their comfort level. I mean, I think there's a difference between happy and comfortable. Some people are very happy having, feeling like they don't have what they want, or feeling like,
I don't think that's happiness though. Do you?
It's not my definition of happiness, but I do think, Wendy, there are those people out there who are so afraid, and maybe it's fear, who are afraid to actually go for the things that they want, because then you really have something to lose.
And I agree with you, but that's what I'm saying is I don't think those people are ever truly happy because they just won't take a chance. And I know people in my life who just aren't happy unless they're complaining. So I get what you're saying, but that's not true. That's not true happiness.
No, that's comfort. That's familiarity. That could be, longing. I mean, it's sort of like, I don't want to realize the things that I'm longing for, because then what if I lose them? And again, that all goes back to the limiting belief piece that is associated with cultivating big wild love, which is you have to look at the limiting beliefs that are telling you, I don't deserve this. This is not possible for me. I'm lucky to have this. Oh my God, if I have this person who is willing to give me everything I want, based on my history of dating very poorly and losing things, what if I lose that? Will I survive that? Will I survive that loss? If I had it and it was taken from me, the whole, like, is it better to love or to have loved or lost, And for some people, that's what keeps them back. And that's why, part of cultivating that big wild love is really getting like up in that mirror and really understanding those beliefs that you have inside of you those are the ones driving the bus. It's not the conscious mind. Your conscious mind might say, oh yeah, I'm going to get married. And your subconscious will be like, not so fast, lady. We're going to let you choose this guy who's never going to get you there, because there's something you need to get from this experience.
And that's probably what was going on with me. Like I told you, I'm like, I am sure, I was sure I was going to get married, but there was something going on somewhere that was probably like,
Right. And that's the work. Like that is the work, truly. And honestly, I don't think it's work that ever stops.
No.
As life changes, as situations change. I mean, look at COVID. We all, like so many of us, just like marched into COVID, like, woohoo, 2019. Yeah. New Year's Eve. Wahoo. I quit my day job. I left my big corporate job that end of that year. My book was coming out in May. I had all these, a book tour, planned, and everything. And it was all taken from COVID.
Yeah.
And so, now, and look, we all got robbed of something in COVID, some of us worse than others. But I mean, now what I'm seeing so many people do, and this is even like in homage to like the Great Resignation and all of these things that are happening in our society right now, is because people are letting go. They've been forced to it first through COVID. But now they're like, in a joking way, like, I didn't survive a pandemic to go back to
my miserable job.
My miserable job, my miserable relationship, my miserable toxic friendships, my miserable mindset. Like, I got to be stuck here for the rest of my life in this job that I hate. Mm-hmm. Well, you don't. And I think people are sort of like really coming down to like looking deeply inside of themselves and doing a lot of this big, wild, loving work.
They're having epiphanies. They're realizing that life is too short.
And that's the start. That's the letting go start. That's the kickoff, right? Are having those epiphanies and actually acting on them and looking at them. Because I guarantee that every single person who's having these epiphanies now, we're also having them back then, but we're doing what I was doing, which was, I don't like it. It's going to change everything. It scares me. I don't like it. Boom, go away. Epiphany. And now here we are, and we're all kind of rethinking, and we're all letting go of all that stuff. And I think when people talk about COVID and we talk about the losses and the grief, people are also talking about some of the good things, which is that they were forced to really be with themselves in those epiphanies and choose. What are you going to do now? Choose. Because that's ultimately what it comes down to, right? Is that choice that we get to make. We're making choices all along the way, but now we're making big, wild, loving choices, which are very different than the ones that have us not paying attention to our epiphanies or require us to someone else's bathroom floor or a pandemic or all these other things before we are ready to look at them and decide, like I always say when I was laying on that bathroom floor, it was like either me or him, in the spirit of self-full.
Right.
It was me or him. And who would I choose?
Well, some people choose him.
And I did for 12 years.
Yeah.
Until I didn't.
Yeah.
Until I didn't.
Absolutely. And that's, I think, what you were saying, one of the very few good things of COVID is it's making people realize you have such little control over so much that you really should control what you can control. And breakups are painful. Being alone can be painful and lonely. Digging down into our limiting beliefs, painful. But we can't start to heal until we start to nurse the wound.
Or just even know that it exists. I am never going to be that person who is going to get up and get dressed every day and be like, damn, girl, you look good, right? I am always
look good. Redhead to redhead.
There you go. But I don't let the limiting belief, the knowledge that, I have issues with food. I have issues about my body. I don't have to solve that. I just have to be aware of it. And when I was invited to give a TED Talk, I worked with a coach who said, what is your greatest fear? And for me, it wasn't, I don't know what I'm going to say. I'm going to be in front of a whole bunch of people. Oh my God, I love that. No, I was like, I don't want to look fat. Right. Now, in previous days, before the cultivation of Big Wild Love, Wendy, that might have stopped me from having one of the most phenomenal experiences of my life.
It changed everything, right?
It changed everything, but it didn't stop me. It didn't stop me this time, just like it doesn't stop me from going to the beach or going on vacation or doing any or all of the things that if in my earlier days when I didn't like the way I looked or felt so good about myself, that I might not have gone. But this is an example of how even just awareness, knowing that it's a trigger that is affecting the kind of life that we want to have, that maybe is defining the kind of choices we make in love and relationship, or frankly, anywhere else. For me, it's body. For someone else, it could be anything else. Mm-hmm. It could be any number of things that they pull out of their hats from their childhood or from any experience they've had in life that could be far worse. So it doesn't have to be solved. It's not like you have to, I just get over it. You don't have to get over it to be able to change it. You don't have to, sometimes, we grieve things and sometimes we just keep coming back to it. As I get older, it's not so easy for me to just lose weight. So now I have to make peace in a different way. And I do. But I recognize now when I'm about to make a choice that is being impacted by a limiting belief, whatever it is, I stop and I ask myself, is that belief true? No. Do I want it to stop me from doing this thing in life that I really want to do? No. So you know what? I'm going to suck it up, Buttercup. I may feel scared. I may feel nervous. I may feel uncomfortable, but I'm going to do it anyway. Am I over it? No, I may never get over it. But that's okay. I can still let go to have the life and the things that I want in life.
That's so good. I love that. I just love that. Ask yourself. Just perfect the way that you said it. Am I going to let this stop me? And right. I have definitely tied my self-worth to my weight most of my life. I mean, a lot of us women have been there.
Many of us do.
Yes. And I've always gone up and down, up and down, up and down. And,
right.
And like you, I might have been in a position where I would, if I were on the higher end of the scale, literally and figuratively, may have turned down an opportunity too. But let me ask you about how the TED Talk thing came about. How did that all happen?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. So, I was working my job. I've been a writer my whole life. As you can tell, Wendy, I am not shy. I love to talk. I've been talking my whole life.
Me too.
And I just loved TED Talks. Like I used to watch them. I mean, like that one day would roll into the next, right? I just marvel at how there are so many people in this world who are doing so many incredible things. And like, I don't love technology, but I love the fact that I could pull a phone out of my ass and watch somebody in another country tell me something, that I can marvel at or that I can learn from. And so I would watch and watch and watch. And I decided, I want to do this. I want to give a TED Talk. I had no idea how. I had no idea what I was going to talk about. And then someone that I love died. And it just hit me in such a deep way that I thought, I need to talk about this. And so I came down to the message of letting go, because I would see so many people, including myself, holding on to things in life that just were not serving them. And this person that died, I was like, I thought he was immortal. It was like, I knew logically that he wasn't, but I thought he's always going to be there. He's tough. And I thought if he could die, we're all going to. And so we need to stop wasting time with this bullshit stuff that we're holding on to, that we don't like, that's miserable. And I really felt like I had no agenda. I had no idea I was going to write about. I had no agenda. I just got up on that stage. So I worked with a coach to help, formulate kind of my thoughts and idea. And then I wrote my talk and it was all done. And I'm like, now what? Talking about, a synchronicity. She sent me a link to an event on a Friday morning. I'll never forget this. On a Friday morning, she said, here's an event. I think it would be perfect for you. You have to apply. The only problem is the deadline is tomorrow morning at noon. And my husband and I were planning to go up into New York for the day. And we were seeing friends that night and we were going to go out. And I ran around the house like a maniac. I said, I can't do this. They want to know like everything about me since birth. I don't have the time. I can't do it. I'm running around the house. My husband is like, where is my wife? Did you kill her? I don't understand. So I said, okay, here's what we're going to do. I worked myself into a frenzy. I slept the whole car ride up into the city. We went out that night. We came home at 1 a.m. Dan went to sleep. I sat down and I filled out that application. At 5 a.m, I was filming a video because they wanted a video. The screen was literally showing up my nostrils in the Marriott. It was horrible. It was like a big mouth and like a big set of nostrils. But you know what? I did it. I sent it in by Saturday morning at noon. I woke him up. I said, I want chocolate cake for breakfast. Shopping. We're going to Urban Outfitters. I'm going to buy all kinds of stuff that I do not need or want. And then we are going to leave. And that's what happened. And I said, okay. And they invited me onto the stage.
Wow.
And I have to tell you, Wendy, it was like, I literally thought that 4 people would watch my talk. Mm-hmm. I had no idea.
Well, and I'll preface this by saying that I've been in morning radio most of my career. And the one host that I worked with talked to me about the fact that relationship issues were always like the number one most popular thing, because everyone has a relationship. Doesn't matter what color you are, what your sexuality is, even just more than romantic partners, you have relationships with your mother, with your sister, with, your friends. And, these kind of topics, because you were a little surprised and overwhelmed with the reaction you got to your talk, correct?
I was. And now in hindsight, I understand what's so very compelling about it. But at the time, because I was getting on the stage, Wendy, there were 25 speakers that day. And there were some women on that stage who'd survived like every bout of cancer. They were in third world countries bringing food and underwear to underserved children. They were lobbying at the Pentagon. They were like doing these enormous things. And I'm thinking, I'm up here talking about a breakup, even though I knew that it was about so much more than that. But now what I have come to understand since giving that talk and writing my book and doing all the research, because I'm a journalism by training, so I would never write a book suggesting a methodology without having it backed in any way by science. And so that was very important to me. But what I've come to understand is that we are all staying too long. in things that are not right for us. And I thought I would hear from women over 40 because, you know, I'm a little older, quotation marks around little. But I hear from women from all over the world. I've heard from teenage girls. I've heard from women in their 20s who, you know, they have that same sense of desperation that I did when I was in my 20s. And I hear from people all over the world who have all had the same issue, which again is why I did not title my book Letting Go. It's a subtitle, but why I titled it Big Wild Love, because the one reason and the only reason that we stay in anything too long, that we hold on to things for way too long, is because we just don't believe we deserve better or it's possible for us. That is the whole story. It's like if we walk to the edge of the cliff and we don't see a net, we will never ever jump, ever, never, unless we want to kill ourselves.
Well, I was going to say, that sounds smart to me, Jill.
Right. But if we know that we're the net, we'll jump every time.
That's good.
It's true. It's true. And, you know, you can't, there's no room in the cabinet for more coffee mugs if it's full of coffee mugs. You've got to get rid of something to let something new come in. Mm-hmm. That's a law of physics, right? Like you just can't bring an infinite number of things or people or experiences into your life. There has to be space. So when you let go, you're letting go, not just of whatever it is that's standing between you and what you want most, but you're also opening up space. You know, when you let go of the idea that maybe you should just go on with your life and not wait anymore for a man to come in, for you to have a home and a beach home and friends and this kind of life, what you did was you opened up space for that right person to come in. You didn't know you were doing it. That's
exactly.
Okay. It's okay. It's okay, because when you're big, wild, loving, that's naturally what begins to happen. It happened for me. It happened for you. It's like people always say, when you stop thinking about it, that's when it'll happen, which sounds always so like it's so unfulfilling when you're going through it. But at the same time, there's a lot of truth to it, because there's a lot of physics involved. When we're holding on to the wrong thought process, we don't have space for the right thought process that's going to inspire our choices, that's going to bring to us the things we think we can't have. So
the hardest part for me, though, going through all of that was just I couldn't change my thinking. I, for some reason, thought I needed a man and a marriage to be whole, that would complete my life. And I just couldn't figure it out until finally. I mean, I obviously thought this for 20 years, you know, even longer. I mean, I did, started dating at probably 14. And finally, when I got to 39, I'm like, well, it just might not be happening for you. I mean, I just gave in because, it just was time.
And I'm glad you said gave in and not gave up, because there is an element of surrender. We can only hold it down for so long. We can only keep trying for so long until there is an element of surrender. And we think about surrender as like being defeatist or being like a negative thing, but I don't know. Is it? I don't think so. I think sometimes we have to let down our guards and just kind of lean into whatever is and let life carry us for a little while. I once worked with this woman. She was amazing. And she said to me, nothing you want in your life is upstream. If you have to swim too hard for it, it's not your thing. You want the things that you can float downstream to, that are meant for you. And I sometimes think that when we hold on to all these things that we think we're supposed to have and do, when other people think of us and the image we're supposed to present, if we hold on to all those things, we are so shortchanging ourselves, because we're clawing our way to things that just are not meant for us. And I don't say this in a Pollyanna way, Wendy. I don't say it lightly. This is why I say we don't have to ever cure ourselves of our limiting beliefs, because I think it's very hard. Some of the limiting beliefs we had are ours to keep, but it's really, how do we live with them? How do we live side by side so we don't shortchange ourselves? How do we let go of them just enough so that we can do the things we want and have the things that we want? And sometimes that means acquiescing to, maybe I'm not going to have, an Oprah book. Maybe I'm not going to sit on Oprah Winfrey's stage and have all of my ex-boyfriends crying in the front row. Like,
oh, that would be so awesome.
Wearing a pair of white pants. Like, oh, please, no. That is just not going to happen for me. I mean, I go into the store with Joanne and Lisa and they're like, please just try on a pair of white pants. And I'm like, I am never going to wear white pants, ladies.
What's wrong with the white pants?
Ever. Because this butt does not go into a pair of white pants.
Oh, no.
And they say that to me, but you know what? That's who I am, and it's okay.
Well, that is okay. I mean, that's
right?
really, that's not that big of a deal.
No, but I'm using it as an example.
I got you.
Right. Like there's some things we thought we would always be, and maybe we didn't come to that. Maybe we took a different road, maybe there are things we always thought. It's okay. It's all okay. Sometimes we have to acquiesce to the idea that this is where we are. And then we have to pull up and say, like we're all doing with COVID, okay, who am I now? What do I want? And how do I get it? And I've had people, Wendy, say to me, like, I wish I could have an epiphany. And I'm like, you can just get still. Stop trying.
We're too afraid. We're too afraid to get still in this day and age. Yeah. In this day and age, we have got to, and myself included, I take my phone to the bathroom with me.
Well, we're addicted. Right. We're all addicted.
And that's what I mean. Like, we don't have a free moment ever. Like, we're just constantly, I even read my book in between the show that I'm watching when the commercials are on, because I can't even stand to watch the commercial. I mean, it's ridiculous.
It is. And it's really, it's so funny. I walk with friends on Sunday, and I was having a conversation with my friend's daughter, and she was saying how she looks at her parents, and they've been married. They were high school sweethearts, and they just like always knew how to enjoy life. She's like, and my boyfriend and I, we're exhausted. We come from work. We're so exhausted all the time. We can't think, and we're just not having the fun they are. And I'm like, because you can't hold yourself that way, because we didn't have this. Mm-hmm. And I said, and for the people who are listening, I'm holding up my phone.
Yes. Thank you.
Yes.
This is audio, not video.
For the people who are listening, I am holding up my phone,
right,
which is a 24/7 experience. And it is really hard, but epiphanies only come through us when we're still.
Absolutely.
And so, hey, take a bath. You can't take your phone. Put your phone. This is what I do, Wendy. I swear this is what I get so many as a writer, because I'm writing a novel and I'm always writing something new. I take my phone, I put it in the bedroom, I go into the bathroom, and I take a long hot bath where I just close my eyes. Sometimes I'll read a book. I keep a notepad right by my tub.
Okay.
Because it comes racing to me. So, and there's actually research behind this. There's actually research if you shower or bathe, that there's something happens to your brain that it starts to make you more creative, and creativity leads to epiphany, and vice versa.
Well, I had read the book, and I just thought it was funny the way that she had put it. Glennon Doyle wrote Untamed. Mm-hmm. And she had said that her daughter had come to her one day and said, Mom, I always get the best ideas in the shower. Mm-hmm. Why? And she said, well, some people call that thinking. But you're doing something that's just robotic, that you don't need to put thought into. So that's when, and again, you're not being occupied by some other form of entertainment or what have you. And it gives your mind a chance to actually come up with its own stuff.
Totally. But there is, and I don't know it off the top of my head, it's in my book, but there is actual research that it like releases dopamine. There's something that happens when we're in the shower.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, it's really interesting.
Okay. So I wanted to ask you, and we'll finish up with this, but what tips would you have for someone who may be in a bad place right now, maybe in a bad relationship, and like they feel stuck? Like what is the first thing they need to do? And like you said, some people ask you, how do I try and have an epiphany? I mean, you can't try to have an epiphany. We've already talked about being still, but how do you start the process? And really, basically what I'm asking is, how do you convince people that they'll be okay?
Yeah. I mean, well, that's a really good and a really hard question, because you really can't convince another person of anything.
No.
I think, I always ask people to think about like wherever it is that they're struggling, if it's relationship, if it's work, if it's, whatever it is, it's like, what do you want from a relationship? What do you want? Like, write it down. When we write things down, when we journal, powerful stuff, our brain changes. So something very magical happens. It's not a writer thing. It's just like an actual, again, rooted in science. What do you want? And then ask yourself, what do you have?
What am I getting?
And hold the two things up. Hold the two things together and see how different they are.
And be honest. Don't be making excuses.
Ask yourself, how do I get from here to here? And what do I need to let go of to do that? And know that it doesn't have to be an overnight experience. Letting go is such a full process. First of all, it took me a year from that epiphany on that stranger's bathroom floor to the time that I left my relationship, that I had that work to do to be okay. But many years ago, when I had my full-time day job, I had somebody who worked for me. I don't think she liked me very much. It's okay.
Doesn't sound possible.
I think she would have rather have had my job than hers.
Oh, okay.
But she one time asked me, and she's like, well, because I might have said something to her like, are you happy here? Is this really what you want to do? And she was like, well, are you happy here? What do you want to do? And I'm like, well, I'd like to give a TED talk and write a book someday. And she looked at me and she said, well, you're pretty far away from that now, aren't you?
Ooh, nice.
And you know what, Wendy? At the time, I got like a little like, got my knickers all in a twist to myself. But then I was like, you know what? She's right. I am pretty far away from that. So if that's what I want my life to look like, how do I get from point A to point B? And what do I have to get rid of? What is in between me and that? And if I can take that from as objective as I could be, and take it from a business tactical perspective, because it's too hard and scary for me to take it from an emotional perspective. If that's the way I work my way in to ultimately having that epiphany, that tells me, I got to leave my job. We're ready for it when we're ready for it. So it's however you can baby step your way in, do it. And know that when you realize that what you want is different than what you have, it's okay. It's okay. You don't have to change anything tomorrow. You have time, but at least allow yourself the process. Allow yourself to, explore what that could look like.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. What a pleasant, fun conversation.
Well, not surprising, Wendy.
We're going to have to get together and go shopping one of these days.
I know we are. We're totally going to have to meet up at Jolie Boutique.
And then we'll have lunch, and then we'll have drinks, and then we'll get together and our husbands together. And then we'll be like lifelong best friends.
Yes. Oh my God. And then we'll live in like a commune together when we're old. And then like, if you ever need, like help with a feeding tube, I can help you with that.
Well,
Or
that is good to know.
if you could figure out how to get a pizza into my feeding tube, that would be really great.
We will work this out. We will definitely work this out.
Yes.
Thank you again. And
thank you. So fun.
we really appreciate you being here. And thank you for joining us. So go on out there and be badass this week. I'm still here cheering you on.